All right. Good evening, everyone. It's about 10:30 on, gosh, what day is this? Wednesday, February 16th, and wanted to give everyone an update on what we can expect overnight. Now, I will start off by saying that we are not expecting a high end severe weather event. I talked about that this morning in my update, so don't worry about that. It's not going to be a traditional springtime tornadoes everywhere, hailing to 3 inches in diameter, things like that. So it's not going to be anything like that. But it is something you want to be aware of during the overnight hours, and really the way it's shaping up, probably toward the morning hours or sunrise, 5 a.m., 6 a.m. Just depends on obviously what part of the metroplex you're in. Further west you are, the sooner. The further east you are, you'll see it a little bit later. So just looking at the radar here, so all the action is out west of us, west of Abilene, west of Wichita Falls, and you can start to see, we're starting to get a line together. Not quite yet, but you can see that this is kind of starting to take shape here, and this is generally moving to the northeast, individual cells, but the whole line will gradually go this way as the night progresses. So in the short term, you won't have to worry about anything as far as between now and certainly between now and midnight, 2 a.m., probably even 3 a.m. I don't think you're really going to see anything. The only way we would see something is if it's something popped up, which obviously could happen in these situations, but it's not looking like that. As I talked about this morning, we have a pretty good capping inversion overhead, so that's going to kind of keep a lid on everything until this front gets a little closer to us, which again is going to be after 3 a.m. So nothing to worry about in between now and then. All right, so if we put this in motion, you'll be able to get a better idea of how far away and how long it's going to take for these storms to get here. Now, while it's getting itself in motion here, you can see you got some severe thunderstorm warnings just east of Midland. You have some severe weather statements near Big Spring, and you'll see this go into motion here in just a second. There we go. So again, you can see the overall motion, or excuse me, the individual motions of this. Well, let me try that again. The individual storms are moving toward the northeast. The whole line, especially when it gets its act together, will start to move more toward the east. So again, I don't think we would see anything before 3 a.m. Anything in North Texas before 3 a.m. So I don't think you have to worry about that. So if you're an early riser, 4 a.m., then you might see something. Unfortunately, it may be a situation where this line comes through after 6 a.m., and that's when everybody's getting ready for school, getting ready for work. And that might be a problem, but I think it might be more of a nuisance than anything to be terribly worried about, and I'll talk about that in a second. All right, so, well, let's just talk about it now. So let's talk about what we have going on as far as chances of seeing severe weather. Now, the National Weather or the Storm Prediction Center just issued this severe thunderstorm watch, and I would emphasize that it does not include the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex areas northwest. And again, I talked about this morning. We really think most of the instability, most of the wind shear, most of the severe weather parameters are northwest of Dallas Fort Worth. So I think it's going to stay that way. And if you could look on, let me go back to the radar real fast. You can see that box. That's the severe thunderstorm watch box on the radar. And here, like I said, here it is more graphically. So you're talking about Abilene, Wichita Falls, Oklahoma City. Probably the closest it gets to Dallas Fort Worth is Gainesville, and of course that's north and northwest of Fort Worth. So that's about as far as it gets. Now, as I've always said, just because you have a watch box that doesn't include Dallas Fort Worth, it doesn't mean that we couldn't see something. But it's not looking very likely at this point. Now, from a graph, let me just look at let me pull up these other graphics here. Okay, let's do this. We'll fade this here and go here. Okay. So we'll just go through these. These are the severe weather probabilities. Now, again, as I always like to say, if you're in a shaded area, whether it's the light green, the darker green, or the yellow, of course, is slight risk of severe thunderstorms. The darker green is marginal risk. That's a chance of seeing severe weather uh, anywhere within 25 miles of a point, anywhere in that area. That's the probability. And so that probability actually is around 15%. So not great, but more than normal. So this is the overall severe weather threat. And obviously, Dallas Fort Worth It's right on the edge of that. And if you get a little closer to that, you can see Dallas proper is in the slight risk area, the northwest half of Dallas County, and pretty much from points there northwest is in the severe weather risk area. And then, of course, in the marginal risk includes everybody else. So that just means that everybody has a chance to see something. It's just that chances are the more intense thunderstorms would stay northwest of us. Now, here is the tornado probability. Now, this actually decreases some because we're in the lighter green, which is 2%. So, not a big probability we would see a tornado, but not zero, of course. And then 5% is up in northwest Texas. So, that's why the severe thunderstorm watch is really issued there. And then the next probability I like to show is, which one is this? Okay, this is the hail probability. Now, again, this would coincide with the stronger thunderstorms we might see, and so that's northwest of Dallas-Fort Worth. 15% chance there. And then finally, the damaging wind threat. And you can see that 15% field expands a little bit, and so it gets a little bit closer to Dallas-Fort Worth. It kind of matches the slight risk area. So I think out of all three modes of severe weather, the tornado, hail, or damaging wind. Now remember, damaging wind is winds greater than 60 miles an hour, wind gusts greater than 60 miles an hour. That's probably our most likely severe weather mode that we would see if we even saw severe weather as it's defined there in Dallas-Fort Worth. I think that's the most likely thing we would see. Doesn't mean we will see it, and certainly not everybody will see it, but that's the most likely severe weather mode we would see. Now the other most likely after that would be hail. And tornadoes, I think, are going to stick around. If we do have tornadoes, I think it's going to be more northwest and north of us into southern Oklahoma. Let's cross our fingers anyway and hope it stays that way. Okay, let me see what else we got. I think I got. Yeah, so this is kind of what I talked about. So this is the location, the type of threat, and the timing. And it's probably might be a little small, depends on what you're watching on. But like I said, most of the action will be northwest of Dallas-Fort Worth as far as severe weather. But again, you can see damaging winds. You can see hail. If we did see hail, it'd probably be up to 1 inch in diameter. That's right at the cutoff for severe hail. And then a brief spin up of a tornado. Again, I think most of that's going to be in southern Oklahoma, but we just got to watch that, obviously. But again, that would be overnight. That would not be anytime soon. So I think, and then of course, timing wise, 2 to 5 a.m. West Texas, Western North Texas, 5 to 7 in the Metroplex, and then 6 to 9 after that, east of Dallas-Fort Worth. Okay, I think that's, yeah. And then again, this is a severe thunderstorm watch, again, northwest of Dallas-Fort Worth. All right, so let's go back to the radar, and let's do some zooming in here. So let's see, we're going to switch radars. This is the Abilene radar that we were looking at. Let's go to Wichita Falls and see what we got. Now, you don't see any severe thunderstorm warnings for this activity, but I think you will start to see that pretty soon. So again, I would say, if you remember what the Storm Prediction Center in their graphics talked about, this area right here is probably the most likely area we would see the most severe weather. That would be hail 1 inch in diameter or greater, or some brief spin up tornadoes. Of course, even if it's brief, if you're underneath that brief tornado, then it's bad news for you. So I think this is the area to be most concerned about. Now, the one thing I would be a little concerned about, not much, and we're going to go to a different page here, and let's fade over here. Okay, so this is the thunderstorm model, and as it's predicted, the evolution of thunderstorms to come through North Texas. So this is current time, so this is a model. This is the European model. So we're going to go through the overnight hours. So this is 1 a.m., 2 a.m., and then 3 a.m. So obviously getting a little closer. 4 a.m., 5 a.m. right there in the middle of the Metroplex, and then 6 a.m. it kind of moves off. So then you get into East Texas, and I will say, if you know anybody in the southeastern part of the United States, tomorrow's, or well, not just southeastern, but the Dixie area, if you will, Alabama, Mississippi, they'll probably have a bad time tomorrow, much worse than we'll have it, unfortunately. So Renee, if you're listening, be careful tomorrow. Renee is my good buddy that lives in Alabama. So that's another way to look at it as far as timing-wise. That's just one model, but that's pretty much a consensus of the models that you would see from a timing standpoint. So let me get the radar back on here. And then, so like I said, so everything's well west of Dallas-Fort Worth. Let's go on a little tour down to Midland, Odessa. Let's see if we can't pull that radar up real quick. And this is where some of the most intense storms have been so far. You can see by the severe thunderstorm warning box that it is. And so this is now east of Midland, but if you kind of peek in on the parameters, 60-mile-an-hour wind gust, nickel-sized hail, so that's what the storm is warned for. Now, granted, that's a low-end severe thunderstorm warning. That's pretty much the minimum criteria you would issue that for. But if we put this in motion, you'll get a better idea about how long it's going to take to get to Dallas-Fort Worth. Now, the other thing, too, I would say is that once this loads up here and gets into motion, the parameters for severe weather are not quite as great over Dallas-Fort Worth. So you will definitely, I think even if this activity ramps up between now and then, I think it'll ramp back down when it gets closer to Dallas-Fort Worth. Again, anywhere from 3 a.m. to 6 a.m., I think is our window. And I would emphasize too, again, this is not a high-end severe weather event. It would really be on the low end. And as I said this morning, I think that the vast majority of us will not see severe weather per se. That doesn't mean you couldn't see some stormy weather, some gusty winds, maybe 30, 40 miles an hour, lightning, thunder, maybe some small hail if you're unfortunate. I don't think it would be damaging hail, but that might be the worst you could see. And I think hopefully the vast majority of us in Dallas-Fort Worth will just see good old-fashioned storms. And the last thing I'll say about all that is that from a rain standpoint, as far as the amount of rain, these are going to be quick-moving storms. You might be lucky if you see a quarter of an inch, and if you're really lucky, you might see half an inch. But I don't even think you're going to see that because there's just not a lot of moisture to work with to be heavy producing rain in these thunderstorms. Okay, so the last radar we'll go back to is our home radar in Dallas-Fort Worth. And just to kind of give you a different perspective on how far things are away from us. So you can see these storms obviously don't look very impressive on the Dallas-Fort Worth radar, but that's because they're so far away. So again, that gives you an idea of how much time we're going to have between now and then. So the bottom line is this. I think between now and at the very earliest, 3 a.m., everything's going to be nice and quiet. And then, but probably more likely between 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. for Dallas-Fort Worth, we'll see some storms roll through. Not everybody's going to see some storms. Not everybody's going to see the worst of the worst. But if you're unlucky enough, you might see some small hails, gusty winds. If that changes appreciably, I'll definitely come back on and let you know that. Of course, that wouldn't be till early in the morning. But I don't think it's anything to be overly concerned about. All right, so let me check the chat. Amy, thank you for you're welcome. I appreciate it anytime. It's kind of a late hour, so I don't expect a lot of people to be watching this live, but I'll put the video on my social media feeds, and that way people can watch it after that. So like I said, so the bottom line is this, not a high-end event. Timing-wise, 4, 5, 6 a.m., give or take. So when you're getting up in the morning, whether you're going to school, going to work, whatever, just be prepared for some stormy weather. It's going to move on through, and then it's going to get cold. Not terribly cold, but it's going to be pretty cold on the rest of Thursday. Gusty north winds, cloudy for a little while. Hopefully the sun will come out. And then Friday will be fairly cold, but won't be near as much wind. And then the weekend's not looking too bad. So that's good news. All right, so that's all I got for now. If something changes dramatically, I will get back on here, which would probably be early in the morning. But with that, I'm watching the weather, so you don't have to. Hope everyone has a great day. Thanks for watching, and we will talk to you soon.